Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here. Please like and subscribe to the channel to give me more motivation to tell more interesting stories. Now let's begin. You always knew your parents played favorites, but you told yourself it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was just little things. She got the new phone, you got the hand-me-down, she got dance classes, you got maybe next year. You figured it would even out when you grew up, when real life started. But the day of the will reading, that's when it became crystal clear your parents had made their choice a long, long time ago. The lawyer's office is quiet. Too quiet, really, except for the hum of the overhead light. You sit on one end of the long mahogany table, your sister on the other, perfectly made up, like she's ready for a Vogue shoot, not a legal proceeding. Your parents, they don't sit at all. They stand behind her like bodyguards, arms folded. You've seen courtroom dramas with less tension. The lawyer adjusts his glasses and clears his throat. According to the final will and testament of Mr. and Mrs. Whitford, the total estate, estimated at $10 million, will be transferred entirely to Abigail Whitford. You blink. Wait entirely. No split. No symbolic gesture. You open your mouth to speak, but your mother's voice slices the air. Don't make a scene. You notice your dad can't even look you in the eye. And your sister, she's grinning like she just won a game she knew was rigged from the start. Funny thing about injustice, it doesn't hit you all at once. It builds. It starts with numbness, then embarrassment, then the sharp sinking punch of betrayal. Your breath tightens. Your chest caves inward, but outwardly you stay still, because you've learned over years of being the second choice that reacting only gives them more fuel. Of course, inheritance battles are as old as civilization itself. The eldest son used to get everything under primogeniture laws, leaving younger siblings with scraps or a job in the clergy. Queen Elizabeth I's cousin, Lady Jane Grey, was executed partly because of inheritance claims tangled in religious politics. Brutal stuff. Still, you never thought you'd be living your own dynasty drama. The lawyer drones on about technicalities, but you can't hear it. You're watching your sister trace her name on the signature line like it's art. Your mom brushes your shoulder as she walks by and says sotto voce, "You should have worked harder. Maybe we'd have considered you." Considered you. You spent your 20s cleaning up their financial mess after the recession, paid off part of their mortgage, took care of Dad's hospital bills, while your sister traveled through Europe on their dime and posted about self-care. They told you family was everything. Apparently, everything just meant her. Historians still argue whether favoritism in family structures is learned or inherent. Some anthropologists claim it's evolutionary parents investing in the child most likely to succeed. Others say it's cultural conditioning, deeply rooted in birth order myths and gender biases. You say it sucks either way. The lawyer closes the folder, and that's when your sister, never one to let silence last, leans back and chirps, "Don't worry, I'll take care of the house. You were never really into it anyway. The house you painted, the house you landscaped, the house you spent 3 summers restoring alongside your father, who now acts like you're invisible." You stand, and for a moment no one breathes. "This isn't over you. Say calm but sharp." Your sister scoffs. "It is for you." Your mom grabs your arm. Hard. You're embarrassing yourself. Your dad doesn't say a word, just helps her drag you from the room like a child throwing a tantrum in church. You feel the sting of fingers in your scalp as she yanks your hair for one final humiliation. Out on the street, you smooth your clothes. You take a deep breath, and you smile. Because this was just the opening act. You already had a plan. You don't cry. That's not your style. Instead, you walk. Past the lawyer's office, past the ridiculous valet with the white gloves who didn't even blink when you were tossed out like bad sushi. You walk through town like it's not the same town where you were just publicly disowned. The air smells like fresh bagels and betrayal. They dragged you out by your hair. It sounds almost funny if it hadn't actually happened. You run your fingers through your scalp, half expecting to find a chunk missing. But no, you're intact, physically, just not emotionally. You stop at a little park bench you used to sit at with your dad when you were 12, sharing cones of vanilla soft serve. He used to talk about how proud he was of you, how you were going to be the steady one, the one with a legacy. Apparently that legacy didn't include any actual money. Historical fun fact in ancient Rome, it wasn't uncommon for parents to adopt adult men just to name them heirs. Why? Because blood didn't always mean loyalty. Today you learned that lesson firsthand. Abigail may have had their affection, but she sure didn't have their hospital bills or sleepless nights or budgeting spreadsheets memorized to the decimal. They gave her everything. And you got a bruised ego and a sidewalk view. Your phone buzzes. It's Henry, your friend, who's more like a half-brother and also happens to be a financial analyst with a petty streak a mile long. I saw the news. It's already in the business registry. Full transfer. You okay? You type back. No, but I've got an idea. Because while they were busy celebrating and literally dragging you out by the scalp like it's a medieval tavern brawl, they forgot one thing. You're not stupid. You didn't grow up ignored and overlooked without learning how to observe, to plan, to wait. You spend the rest of the day gathering yourself. Not emotionally, you're too numb for that, but logistically, you make lists, you open old folders, you start connecting dots. Because rich people always make one mistake. They assume being quiet means being weak. By the time night falls, you've checked your sister's social media. She's already posted a story holding a glass of champagne in the backyard of your childhood home, captioned #blessed. You can almost smell the Chanel No. 5 through the screen. You can't sleep that night. Your brain's too loud. It hums with rage and ideas and fragments of old conversations that now seem like prophecies. Like the time your mother said, if only Abigail would take her life seriously, she could really run this place. And the time your father sighed, I wish you weren't always so responsible. You remind me of myself. Historians still debate whether memory is reliable under emotional stress. Some neuroscientists argue that trauma sharpens recall. Others claim it distorts it, like a cracked mirror. Either way, you remember everything. You remember what Abigail did to get suspended in college and how your father covered it up with a fat check and a nod. You remember that night in 2019 when your dad panicked about an IRS letter and you sorted through the paperwork to find the missing 1099. You remember the look on your mom's face when you suggested putting the deed in both names and how she laughed. You pull out an old ledger from your files. It's handwritten. You once tracked every dollar you funneled into the estate, repairs, mortgage, taxes, thinking one day you'd be reimbursed. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but you prefer it calculated. Here's the plan, taking shape in your head. Step 1, make them think you're done. Step 2, get back into that house. Step 3, get what's yours by making them admit what they never wanted the world to know. But first you need someone who knows all the loopholes, and you already know who to call. Oh, and side note, did you know that during the French Revolution, people forged fake noble lineages to claim estates left behind by fleeing aristocrats? Petty, yes. Genius, also yes. The irony isn't lost on you. You might not have a crown, but you've got a sharper weapon. Your memory. Your alarm buzzes at 7:00 a.m., but you're already awake. You haven't really slept. You spent the night crafting the skeleton of your plan, piece by piece, like some cursed architect in a heist movie, but the only treasure is justice and maybe a little poetic retribution. You drink your coffee black. You always do when you mean business. Your first call is to Dana Meacham, an old college friend turned corporate attorney who once told a room full of undergrads that contracts are written in blood, just dried with ink. She picks up on the third ring, groggy. It's Saturday. You cut straight in. My parents gave Abigail everything. The house, the inheritance, all of it. I have receipts, logs, and history on my side, but I need someone who knows how to draw blood legally. That wakes her up. 20 minutes later, you're meeting her at a bagel shop with more legal pads than cream cheese. You lay it out. Every repair invoice, every Venmo transaction, every secret clause your father once mentioned after one too many Manhattans. She listens. She chews slowly. Then she grins. You know, there's something satisfying about dismantling a trust fund from the inside out, she says. Tell me more about this discretionary trust clause you mentioned. You slide a crumpled sticky note across the table, written years ago, when your dad was tipsy and complaining about how the kids would fight over the estate one day. Funny how prophetic drunks can be. Dana's eyes widen. If this is what I think it is, they didn't have the legal authority to fully transfer your share. You might not be locked out entirely, especially if you can prove coercion or lack of notice. You blink. Wait, they may have broken the trust rules themselves. Bingo, she says, and if that's true, I'll burn them with the same torch they tried to use on you. Historical footnote: in 18th century England, trusts were used to keep money within the male line, often bypassing women altogether. Today, the modern irony is that trusts often bypass logic instead. But loopholes exist, and they're delicious when discovered by someone vengeful and caffeinated. You look Dana in the eye. I need back in the house. She leans back. You have a key. You nod. They forgot I'm on the title. They never removed me after the renovation period. Technically, I still have physical access. You want to sneak in, not sneak, return, with a smile. That's step one of your plan. Act like you've surrendered. Let them believe they've won. You text Abigail. It takes everything in your soul not to add a middle finger emoji. Hey, I've been thinking. You're right. It's your time. I'll stop making things awkward. Let's be civil. She replies 6 minutes later. Thanks. I'm glad you're seeing things clearly. Come by this week. We should talk in person. You resist the urge to gag, or scream, or set your phone on fire. You reply, Tuesday work. Perfect. I'll have champagne. Perfect. Because that gives you 2 days to wire up your shirt and record everything she says. Remember Watergate. That whole scandal started with a couple of wiretaps and ended with a presidency imploding. You don't need Nixon-sized corruption, just one juicy, arrogant confession. Dana calls in a favor with a tech-savvy friend, and you're fitted with a discreet audio pin that looks like a lapel clip. Records for 6 hours, crystal clear audio. Oh, and bonus. The pin itself is engraved with "Trust Me." You laugh. Historians still argue whether betrayal was the true cause of Julius Caesar's downfall, or if it was just political timing. Either way, Brutus never wore a mic. You do. The morning of the visit, you put on your best neutral outfit, nothing threatening, something forgettable. You practice your lines in the mirror like an actor, friendly, apologetic, just defeated enough to be believable. You knock on the door to the house that was half yours and still is in some corners of the law. Abigail opens it with a glass in hand. Well, well, look who came crawling back. You smile tightly, can't beat the queen. She laughs. Come in. You step inside. Same furniture, same smell, different vibe. You feel the betrayal hanging in the air like the scent of overcooked bacon. She waves at the couch. Sit. Let's clear the air. And you do. Because step 2, let her talk. She'll bury herself if you just keep the shovel handy. You sit on the couch, your couch, by the way, hands folded like some polite visitor from another dimension. The champagne flute she hands you is ice-cold bubbles swirling like secrets. You don't sip. Just hold it. Let her believe she's in charge. Abigail tosses herself onto the opposite armchair, one leg swinging over the side like she's Queen of Versailles, not a spoiled heiress with a closet full of unpaid speeding tickets. So she starts already smug. I'm glad we're being adults about this. You nod. Of course, it's your house now. The words are bitter in your mouth, but the mic on your lapel doesn't catch that. What it does catch is the sloppiness of her gloating. Honestly, she says, swirling her glass, they didn't even want to give me the whole thing at first. I had to convince them. You lean in, heart pounding. Oh, she shrugs. Yeah, I mean, you're so serious all the time. Dad was worried you'd lawyer up if they gave me everything, so I promised to keep you out of it. Said I'd handle you. Handle you. Wow, that one almost makes you laugh out loud. Really, you ask, carefully neutral. I said you'd either throw a fit or vanish. And if not, well, we always knew how to push your buttons. Worked, didn't it? Oh, it worked. Just not the way she thinks. You smile, feigning smallness. It's just money. She raises an eyebrow. That's what I told them. You never cared about the lifestyle. You wore thrift store clothes even when we were loaded. She's right. You did. But not because you didn't care about money, because you understood value. History proves that over and over the rich who stay rich aren't the ones who flaunt it. Just ask Warren Buffett, or better yet, Benjamin Franklin, who once wrote that a penny saved is a penny earned, while he himself retired wealthy. You glance around the room. Still, it feels weird being back. Well, don't get too comfy, she chirps. It's my sanctuary now, my domain. Sanctuary, domain. You wonder when she started talking like a Bond villain. Then a gift from above, she starts pacing. People always confess more when they move. Like motion unlocks ego. I told Mom she owed me, she says, arms flailing. I reminded her how she bailed you out all the time, even though I was the one with potential. You keep your face blank. Inside, you're grinning like a Cheshire cat. Honestly, she adds, not even glancing your way, if you'd been more assertive, maybe she wouldn't have written you off. There it is. You've been written off. That's on record now. She sits again lazily. Anyway, I'm glad you're not going to do anything stupid. Imagine if you tried to contest it. The whole thing would fall apart. You blink. Why? And she laughs. I mean, I did kind of strong-arm them into signing early. The ink was barely dry when I transferred the deed. Honestly, I don't even know if they understood the final draft. I just told them it was a simplified version. Simplified version. Didn't understand. Your lawyer is going to feast on this. Historians still debate whether Marie Antoinette ever said, "Let them eat cake." Most agree she probably didn't, but the quote stuck because it felt true. That's the thing with arrogance, it doesn't have to be literal to be damning. Abigail tops off her glass and clinks it toward yours. To new beginnings. You raise yours too, to the truth. She doesn't even blink. You fake a yawn and stand. I should go, just wanted to clear the air. Oh, and don't tell Mom I told you all that, she winks. She's paranoid. You nod. Your secret's safe with me. 10 minutes later, you're in Dana's office, replaying the audio. When Abigail says, I had to convince them, Dana pauses the track. She admits manipulation. If your parents didn't fully understand the documents they signed, we can argue undue influence. This isn't just shady, it could be reversed. You exhale for the first time in hours. She continues, we'll need to subpoena the notary. Get testimony on the condition of your parents. during signing and dig into any coercion. But it's winnable. You lean back in the chair, your mind racing. I need more, you say, not just reversal. I want accountability. Dana raises an eyebrow. You mean revenge? You shake your head. No, I mean justice with flair. Oh, good, she smirks. I thought you were going soft. Outside her window, the sun is setting. The sky burns with orange and crimson, like an omen, or maybe just a good omen, dressed like a threat. You check your phone again. Abigail's already posted another photo, her holding the keys to the wine cellar, captioned, "Mine." Let her gloat. You're about to turn the story upside down. You're up before dawn the next day, watching the sunrise through the tiny kitchen window of your apartment. The light hits the counter just right, the kind of soft glow that makes everything look cleaner than it is. It's almost enough to make you forget the pit of fury in your stomach. Almost. Time to move on to the next piece of your plan context. You don't just want your revenge, you want the whole picture. You want to understand why your family would do this to you, why they'd smile to your face for years, only to hand everything to Abigail, like you were a temp worker they'd forgotten to fire. So you dig. You start where every good betrayal begins history. You pull out old photo albums, letters, estate records, and yes, the dusty journals your mom kept like they were the Rosetta Stone of emotional manipulation. You spend hours reading cataloging and noticing patterns. One thing becomes clear. Abigail was never the backup plan. She was always the golden child. You were the scaffolding. You were the sturdy foundation on which they built her pedestal. You remember your 13th birthday. Abigail got a horse. You got a savings bond. They told you it was the smarter gift. Historians still argue whether birth order shapes personality or if it's all just confirmation bias. Firstborns are supposed to be leaders, middle kids, the forgotten peacekeepers, and the youngest, the spoiled wild cards. But in your family, you were the oldest and the invisible one. You take a break to eat toast while flipping through your dad's old ledger. Buried between pages of tax receipts and business memos, you find something that makes your stomach drop. An account transfer, dated 2 months before the will change. Amount $300,000 from joint business account to Abigail Whitford, Private Investments, LLC. You don't remember any family business discussions about Abigail starting a company, because there weren't any. You call Dana. She picks up immediately. What now? You send the photo of the ledger entry. They were funneling her money from the business account, without my knowledge. I was still part owner at that point. She whistles. Now that's tasty. That's not just unethical. That's possibly fraudulent. If your name was still on the business registry, it was you interrupt, until 6 weeks ago. Then she's toast. And toast she'll be. But it gets better. You head to the county archive office to retrieve copies of the original estate documents. A friendly archivist named Carl, who smells vaguely of old glue and Earl Grey, helps you dig up the originals. And what do you find? The original clause in your father's handwriting, dated from 5 years ago, specifying that any estate adjustments must receive co-signatures from all parties. All parties, meaning you. That clause never made it into the final draft. Or rather, it wasn't supposed to, unless, of course, someone had decided to selectively forget it. You snap a photo, you print a certified copy, and you walk out of the archives like you've just uncovered buried treasure, because you have. Did you know that in 1799, a French aristocrat forged his own will to make sure his son didn't inherit his estates? When the fraud was discovered, posthumously, the courts ruled in favor of the dead man's final wishes. A chilling precedent, but not one you're going to let play out again. You spend the next 2 days cross-referencing dates, transaction logs, notarized copies, and even surveillance footage from the estate's security cameras. Turns out your parents had the cameras upgraded right before the will was changed. Abigail signed for the installation herself. Interesting. You watch the grainy footage from the day of the signing. There's your mom hunched and slow. Your dad looks confused. And Abigail standing over them with a pen in one hand and a document in the other, coaching them word for word. Dana's eyes go wide when she sees it. That's coercion. Possibly elder abuse if they were mentally diminished. If they didn't understand what they were signing, this whole thing could be reversed in court. You nod. But I don't want to just reverse it. She sighs. What do you want? I want a confession. Public or legal. I want her to say it. I want them to hear it. The community, the people who thought we were the perfect family. You lean back in your chair. I want the story to unravel from the inside. Because it's not just about money anymore. It's about the lie. And the lie is about to unravel in front of everyone who ever believed it. You don't sleep again. Not properly. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling fan, letting it spin above you like a lazy helicopter. Your mind is spinning faster. You've got documents, audio footage, and now a full-blown map of betrayal. All signs point to one thing they never expected you to fight back. By sunrise, you're back on your laptop. It's time to dissect the money trail, not the inheritance itself. You already know about that. You want to see what Abigail and your parents were doing before the will changed. Who moved what and when. You want to know if this plan had been years in the making. You're deep into spreadsheets and archived statements when you hit something unexpected, a wire transfer to a private escrow account in the Cayman Islands. Date 3 months before the inheritance shift. Amount $1.2 million. You stare at it cold creeping down your arms. That's more than let's help Abigail start a business. That's hide the money territory. You call Henry, your unofficial forensic accountant bestie. He answers on the first ring. Tell me you didn't sleep again. Tell me how long it takes to follow a wire transfer overseas. He exhales. Depends. But if you're seeing the Cayman Islands, you're looking at a shelf corporation. These people watched one Netflix documentary on money laundering and thought they were geniuses. Can you trace it? I can try, but if this is linked to your inheritance, there's more going on than a greedy sister. This is full-on family fraud. You sit back in your chair, trying to calm your racing heart. Start tracing. I'll send you everything. Mainstream historical fact. After the Great Depression, U.S. families with wealth began using offshore trusts to safeguard estates from taxes and lawsuits. It wasn't illegal, but it was definitely suspicious, like a locked vault in a burning building. You text Dana, found a Cayman transfer, want to bet it's tied to my share. She replies, if it is, we go nuclear. You smile. Then it hits you. The date of the transfer, 3 months ago. That's exactly 1 day after you helped your father fix the plumbing in the guest house when he thanked you and said, you'll always be taken care of. Historians still debate whether betrayal hurts more when it comes from love or obligation. Some say love because it leaves a scar. Others argue obligation because you never had a choice. You say both hurt like hell. Your next step is physical. You drive to the family estate again, not to see Abigail, but to access the detached garage where you once stored old files. And because you still technically co-owned it during the time of the transfers, you bring a locksmith and Dana's legal authorization just in case the alarm tries to go off. It doesn't. Inside, the air smells like mildew and old secrets. You run your fingers along boxes labeled things like Abbey College Apps and Xmas 08. You find one labeled Estate pre-draft docs. Jackpot. In it you find a timeline. Printed. Color-coded. With notes written in Abigail's handwriting. Dad nervous about taxes. Move $300K to LLC. Call Tony. Mom thinks I should wait till after spring. Rebrand house in my name equals proof of stability. You snap photos of every page your hands shaking. These weren't just impulsive decisions. This was a cold, structured campaign, a legal heist. And you were the mark. Dana reads the files over Thai takeout later that night, a curry spoon halfway to her mouth. This is industrial strength deception. She played everyone like a harp. You say nothing, still looking at the word rebrand in capital letters. Like the house was a product and you were an outdated version. I want to expose it all, you whisper. Dana nods slowly. Then we need court, discovery phase, depositions, the works. But I want more than just a lawsuit. I want this to sting. She sets down her spoon. Then we leak it. Anonymous tips. Let a few investigative journalists nibble at the story before we file. Let the pressure build. You pause. That's risky. She grins. So is trusting your sister. Look how that turned out. Fringe tidbit of the day. In 2011, a man in Austria faked his death to avoid paying taxes, then got caught when he updated his Spotify playlist. Lesson: no one hides forever. You lean back in your chair. The storm is brewing. You've got a growing list of sins and signatures. And the best part, they still think you're licking your wounds. But you're holding the match. Dana taps her pen against the legal pad, each tap a slow countdown to chaos. We need someone bold, eccentric, and absolutely willing to destroy reputations, she says, scribbling furiously. You arch an eyebrow. You mean besides you? She grins. I'm strategic. But for this, we need a showman, someone who loves courtroom drama the way most people love ice cream. You already know who she means. You haven't seen him in years, not since a mutual friend's disastrous wedding, where he loudly objected, halfway through the vows, to everyone's delight, but the groom's. But his reputation has only grown. He's a legal grenade in a three-piece suit. Enter Alistair Crane, attorney-at-law collector of antique swords and lover of chaos. You meet him in his private office above an obscure bookstore where the smell of old leather and pipe smoke hits you like time travel. The office looks like Sherlock Holmes had a baby with a courtroom drama, suits of armor legal tomes stacked next to Roman busts, and a Japanese katana hung directly above his diplomas. Alistair stands to greet you wearing a red silk cravat and a pocket watch he actually uses. I hear you've been wronged, he says, pouring tea without asking if you want any. Tell me everything, and make it juicy. You do. You walk him through the will, the coercion, the money laundering breadcrumbs, the Cayman accounts, the garage files. He listens like it's a bedtime story. When you finish, he stands, hands clasped behind his back. My dear friend, this is not just legal warfare. This is theater. Your sister wrote herself the lead role, but forgot you were holding the script. Mainstream historical fact. In the 18th century, some barristers in Britain were so flamboyant in court, they were considered celebrities, cheered or hissed like stage actors. Alistair would have fit right in, maybe even led the ovations. He reviews the documents Dana provided, his eyes lighting up. This clause here, this old co-signature requirement, delightful. And the Cayman transfer. Oh, we'll file that under intent to conceal assets. The judge will salivate. You watch as he spins a pen between his fingers like a dagger. And what do you want, he asks. You hesitate. Reversal, yes. But more than that admission, I want her to own what she did, not just in court. I want it to echo publicly. He nods. Then we go nuclear. Strategic leaks, anonymous tips, and a discovery request so wide she won't know which lie to patch first. Will it work? He smiles. Do you believe in karma? Fringe fact. In 2009, a Canadian millionaire left his fortune to a dog shelter instead of his children, claiming they were leeches. The kids sued and lost. Turns out, intentions matter more than family ties when the court gets involved. Alistair outlines the plan. File for injunction to freeze all estate assets until fraud allegations are resolved. Issue subpoenas for all financial records, including overseas transfers. Submit motion to challenge the will based on undue influence and mental incapacity. Initiate deposition for Abigail on camera, under oath. Leak carefully worded tip to a journalist who specializes in estate fraud and family corruption. He finishes the tea, sets it down, and says, "This case is a gift, a lie wrapped in velvet and handed to someone who finally said no more." As you leave, he calls after you. Oh, and wear something dramatic to the first hearing. Optics matter. Dana calls that evening. I just got the injunction signed. Abigail can't touch a dime until this plays out. You almost laugh. Her face when she finds out, and find out she does. Because by midnight she's texting you. What did you do? The accounts are frozen. The lawyer won't call me back. You need to fix this. You stare at the screen, then type. You said I'd either vanish or throw a fit. You didn't expect a lawsuit, huh? 3 dots, typing, then gone. Historians still argue whether revenge has a shelf life. Some say closure fades. Others insist justice delayed is sweeter than instant karma. You're just getting started. The next morning, your phone rings. It's your mother. You let it go to voicemail. Then you press play. I can't believe you're doing this to the family. You chuckle, because they started it. But you're going to finish it with swords, subpoenas, and style. The attic smells like mothballs, dust, and secrets. You stand at the top of the creaking stairs in the old estate. Yes, your estate holding a flashlight in one hand and your phone camera in the other. Dana's waiting in the car with a legal assistant and a document scanner just in case you find anything useful, and you're betting big that you will. You aren't technically breaking in. Your name is still partially associated with the property in the local registrar's system, and the emergency hearing hasn't ruled out your right to retrieve personal belongings. That's your legal umbrella for now. So when Abigail isn't home, you walk in through the unlocked side door like you belong there. Because you did. Because you still do. Up in the attic, you start rummaging through boxes labeled in your father's crisp handwriting. Taxes, 2017, retirement planning, old wills. Bingo. You tear through brittle manila folders, your fingers blackened with age and ink. Then you find it. An envelope yellowed at the edges labeled simply, Original Trust Draft, Revocable. Inside, a single legal document older than the most recent, will signed by both your parents, you and the family lawyer, from a decade ago, now retired. And in the margins, a handwritten clause added in blue pen. If either party attempts to amend this trust without full written disclosure to all legal heirs, said amendment shall be rendered null and void. You freeze, because there it is. The clause that proves the recent will was not just immoral, it was invalid. Historical fact. In medieval France, kings often added secret clauses to treaties that only came to light decades later, long after wars had been fought and kingdoms toppled. The power of a hidden phrase has always been underestimated. You text a photo of the clause to Dana. She replies in seconds. This is it. This is the nail. Scan every page and bring it down now. You scan it, all of it, then descend the attic stairs like you're walking out of a tomb, except instead of the undead, you're bringing something back to life. Downstairs, you pause at the entry hall. There's a family portrait still hanging on the wall. You, your parents, Abigail. You must have been 14. You remember this shoot. You remember being told not to slouch, not to smile too much, not to outshine Abigail. Even in a photo, the hierarchy was set in stone. You lift the frame off the hook, flip it over. There, tucked behind the backing board, is a folded slip of paper. You unfold it. It's a note from your father, written in pen, that's faded but legible. If something ever happens to me, trust the one who fixed the boiler in winter, not the one who broke the thermostat and blamed the dog. Your breath catches. He knew. He knew she was careless. He knew you were the reliable one, the one who showed up, and yet somewhere along the line, he still gave in. Or maybe he never intended the last version of the will to stand at all. Historians still debate how much agency parents have in choosing favorites. Some claim unconscious biases drive the divide. Others say it's deliberate survival logic, give more to the child who needs more. But your sister didn't need more, she just demanded it louder. You bring the original draft down to Dana. She spreads the pages on the dashboard like tarot cards. This, she says, tapping the clause will blow it wide open. Back at her office, you draft a motion to have the current will declared void. With the original trust resurfaced and evidence of secret amendments, plus potential elder coercion, it becomes clear Abigail's version of the truth is crumbling. You file it. Alistair reviews it while sipping absinthe, yes, absinthe, and muttering phrases like magnificent sabotage and they won't know what hit them. You almost feel sorry for your sister. Almost. You get the notification a few days later. A formal deposition date is set. Abigail is required to testify under oath. She'll have to explain everything. The secret transfers, the simplified version of the will, the Cayman Islands, and now the buried clause. Fringe tidbit. The longest legal battle over a will lasted more than 100 years in England. The Jennings versus Jennings estate. Generations of descendants fought over a fortune lost to legal costs. You're not letting that happen because you don't want the fight to last a century. You want it to end publicly and very, very soon. The courtroom is colder than you expected. Not just the temperature, though. Yes, the air conditioning is doing a little too much, but the energy. Cold stares, cold posture, cold shoulders from people who used to sing you lullabies and tuck you in at night. Your sister walks in like she owns the marble. Hair perfect blazer, crisp heels, loud. She scans the room and smirks until she sees Alistair seated at your side. He's in full form today. Plum-colored waistcoat, silver pocket watch, a tiny brooch of a griffin. Yes, a griffin. Let the games begin, he whispers. Abigail's lawyer is younger than her Instagram filter settings. You can almost see the panic in his notes, because today it's not just a hearing, it's a war zone. The judge enters gray hair, weary eyes, and the aura of someone who's heard every family tear each other apart at least twice before lunch. He nods, takes his seat, and signals to begin. What follows is less a deposition and more a dramatic reading of how to implode your own reputation. Alistair begins with his favorite weapon politeness with a knife inside. Ms. Whitford, he says, can you confirm that you personally assisted your parents in preparing the updated will? Yes, Abigail says with a gleam. They asked me to help make it more efficient. And by efficient, do you mean removing your sibling's name entirely from both the will and estate paperwork? She blinks. I didn't remove anything. I simplified. The judge raises an eyebrow. Alistair paces. Did you notify your sibling, whose name was still legally attached to both the estate and business at the time of the transfer? No, it wasn't required. Actually, Alistair says producing a printed copy of the trust clause it was. According to the original document, still active, still binding, You were obligated to notify all legal heirs. She goes still. Dana watches from the gallery, arms crossed, barely hiding a smirk. And Alistair adds, "Are you aware of the clause written in your father's own hand, stating that any changes made without disclosure are rendered null and void?" She stammers. "I'll repeat the question," Alistair says smoothly. "Were you aware?" "I didn't think it mattered," she mutters. There it is, the sound of collapse. Historians still debate whether Cleopatra died from a self-inflicted snakebite or political assassination. Either way, it was the end of a dynasty caused by overconfidence and betrayal. Sound familiar? Then comes the big blow, the wire transfers. Alistair presents them like a magician pulling swords from a hat. Every transaction, every foreign account. He even has color-coded charts. "Can you explain?" He asks why funds were moved from the family business to your private shell company before the will was even changed. "I was planning investments without the knowledge of your co-owner. I didn't think." Precisely. By the time she's asked about coaching your parents through the will caught on camera, mind you, her voice cracks. "I just wanted them to be proud of me," she says. The room falls silent. Not because it's touching, because it's hollow. You shift slightly in your seat. You should feel triumph. But what you feel is something colder, like the sound of a mirror cracking in a quiet house. Fringe fact: in ancient Mesopotamia, laws about inheritance were written in stone literally. If someone broke them, their punishment was carved next to the infraction for everyone to read. Permanent accountability. As the hearing breaks for recess, your mother approaches. Her face is drawn tight. "You really want to destroy your sister over money?" You pause. "No. I want the truth to have a voice. And for once it's mine." She doesn't respond. Your father, standing behind her, finally says, "You fixed the boiler. I remember." And just like that, the smallest fracture opens in a wall that took years to build. Outside the courtroom, a reporter catches your name and asks, "Any comment on today's testimony?" You reply, "Just doing what I was taught. Take care of the house." Dana texts a minute later, "They're going to settle. They don't want this going further." You stare at the message, because it's almost over, but not quite. You don't celebrate. Not yet. You sit in Dana's office, legs crossed, sipping lukewarm coffee while the legal team flips through the proposed settlement. It's thick, glossy, probably cost Abigail's lawyers more than your first car. So Dana says, sliding the packet across the table, they're offering full reinstatement of your share, plus back interest on withheld funds and removal of Abigail from any administrative roles in the estate. She pauses, watching you. They're betting you'll want peace more than punishment. You run a finger along the edge of the document. The paper is high quality, of course it is. Nothing says we're sorry like expensive cardstock. Alistair, lounging nearby in a Victorian armchair he apparently brings to court appearances, chimes in, "It's a sweet offer. They're terrified of a full trial. Your sister could face charges if we push for financial misconduct." You nod slowly. "It's not about the money anymore." Dana leans forward. "Then what do you want?" You look out the window. The city moves like nothing happened. People buying groceries, walking dogs, living lives not torn open by betrayal and legacy games. I want them to say it. Alistair raises an eyebrow. In writing, no. I want them to admit in court what they did, that they manipulated the will, that they excluded me, that they lied. Dana exhales. You want a public record. You nod. A line in the transcript that says, "We were wrong. I want history to remember it." Historical fact. In 1521, Martin Luther refused to recant his 95 Theses before the Diet of Worms. He stood alone and said, "Here I stand, I can do no other." That moment sparked centuries of reform. Sometimes one sentence is enough to change everything. Fringe fact. During the 1930s in Japan, wealthy families made heirs sign public honor contracts, admitting if they ever misused family wealth. The documents weren't always enforceable, but the shame was. Dana flips to the end of the settlement. We can add a clause, a formal statement, written, signed, and submitted into court record, but they'll fight it. You smile, then let them fight. 2 days later, Abigail's lawyer calls, voice tight, controlled. She's willing to sign it, but only if you agree to no further public commentary. You think for a moment, then respond, I don't need to talk. The documents will do it for me. That afternoon, you attend the final hearing. Your parents are there. Abigail is too dressed down now. No designer blazer, just a gray cardigan, like she's trying to blend in with the furniture. The judge reads the statement aloud. The one you demanded, the one they agreed to. We, the undersigned, acknowledge that the revised will submit it in favor of Abigail Whitford did not meet the terms of the original family trust, and that said, revisions excluded legal heirs in violation of stated agreements. It echoes in the courtroom like a church bell. The judge nods, and by signing, all parties agree to the reinstatement of inheritance, reversal of transfers, and cessation of administrative rights from Abigail Whitford. Abigail doesn't look at you. Your mother glances over once, not with anger, with something closer to fatigue. Your father mouths something, 2 words. You think it's, I'm sorry. You don't say anything back. Historians still argue whether apologies matter after the damage is done. Some say forgiveness is a personal balm. Others argue it's meaningless without change. You're not sure. But you know this. Today the truth was heard. Outside the courtroom, reporters gather. Microphones raised, cameras blinking like mechanical fireflies. You give a short statement, nothing dramatic. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoring what was stolen, whether that's money or a voice or a place at the table. Then you walk away. You're not angry anymore. You're clear. Dana catches up to you outside. That was poetic. You smile. That's what happens when you grow up in the attic while your sister throws parties downstairs. She nudges you. What will you do now? You shrug, rebuild, redecorate, breathe. Because it's not over, not really, but it's yours again. And that changes everything. The house looks different now. Not because it's changed. No, the porch still creaks. The rose bushes still curl around the fence like tangled secrets. But because you've changed. You stand at the foot of the driveway with the new keys in hand, the legal reinstatement stamped and notarized, a quiet document with thunder behind it. Your sister is gone. Voluntarily, technically. Under pressure, definitely. She left the day after the court ruling, slamming drawers and muttering about betrayal. Her pride wouldn't let her stay in a house that no longer had her name on it. She took the wine fridge, left the dog, typical. Inside you walk room to room. Every corner holds a memory. And every memory now belongs to you, no longer filtered through the lens of second place, son, forgotten child, family assistant. In the living room, you find a note taped to the back of the remote. Hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. See, you crumple it, not in anger, in relief. Because what you wanted was never just about property. You wanted acknowledgement. And now the silence she left behind is all the acknowledgement you need. You're repainting the kitchen walls when Dana calls. She's laughing, which is always a warning sign. You're trending, she says. Some journalist linked the court records to that anonymous tip. The story's out. What story? Heiress loses estate after sibling uncovers secret will scandal. It's gone viral. Reddit's calling you the hair-pulled hero. You laugh. Actually laugh. The first real one in months. She continues, they especially love the part about her saying, I didn't think it mattered. There's already a remix on TikTok. You can't stop grinning. Did you leak it? Please, Dana says. Do I look like someone with time for TikTok? Alistair probably did it. That man lives for drama. Mainstream historical fact. In the 1980s, a woman named Sandra West was buried in her Ferrari per her will. Her relatives fought in court for years to stop it unsuccessfully. The public adored it, because when wealth meets absurdity, it becomes entertainment. You sit on your newly restored couch and watch the story unfold across the internet. There's something wild about seeing your private hell turned into a public soap opera. But it doesn't bother you, because people believe you now. Your inbox fills with messages, some supportive, some curious, some from people you barely remember from high school. One catches your eye. Saw the article. I went through something similar with my brother. Thanks for speaking up. You reply, it's never too late to reclaim what's yours. Later that night, you find yourself staring at the grand fireplace where Abigail once held court at family dinners. You remember her loud voice, her sparkling stories, the way your parents leaned in just a bit closer to her side of the table. But now, the fireplace is quiet. The room is yours. Historians still argue whether inheritance laws do more harm than good. Some say they preserve legacy. Others argue they fuel decades of family rot. In your case, it was both. You pour a drink, something simple, no champagne. Then you raise your glass to the empty room, to the forgotten ones, to the reliable ones, to the ones who never got the horse on their birthday but showed up anyway. The logs crackle in the hearth. Outside, the wind moves through the trees. No one's dragging you anywhere now, not by the arm, not by the hair, and certainly not from your own house. 2 weeks pass. The media buzz fades like all viral storms do. A new scandal takes over the headlines. Some celebrity divorce, a billionaire's yacht catching fire, whatever. But your story. It still lingers in the corners of internet forums passed around as a parable for quiet revenge and poetic justice. You've started organizing the upstairs office, your father's old study, once locked to you, unless you had a valid reason to enter. Now it's yours. You sort through drawers, flipping past warranties, dusty receipts, and something unexpected. A thin envelope labeled Tax Archive, 1912 clause. It's one of those moments that feels small until it crackles with potential. You open it and find a printed copy of an obscure tax reform note, annotated with your father's writing. Old family assets fall under pre-1917 deed protection. Check this. You squint, then call Alistair. Tell me, you ask, did my dad ever mention something called the 1912 clause? Alistair makes a sound halfway between a gasp and a villainous purr. Oh, he didn't. That dusty gem. That's an old American estate law loophole. Few know it even exists. Is it real? Oh, very. It allows certain heirlooms and land to bypass probate if declared part of an original homestead deed prior to the 1917 Estate Reform Act. Most families lost eligibility generations ago. You grin. Ours didn't. Turns out the family estate sits on land bought in 1911. There's a clause in the deed that your father, meticulous, secretive, quietly brilliant, tucked away like a legal time bomb. It means a large part of the estate, including the surrounding property and original barn, may never have been Abigail's to touch. Alistair all but dances. Do you know what this means? We could claw back even more assets, possibly invalidate the original financial transfers entirely. Her LLC might owe you damages. Fringe tidbit. In 2005, a family in Massachusetts used a similar loophole to reclaim ancestral farmland taken in the 1930s. They won not because of a new law, but because of an old one that had never been repealed. You sit back in the office chair. the same one your dad once guarded like a throne. You spin slowly, staring at the windows. They thought they had planned for everything. But your father left this clue, maybe intentionally, maybe not. But it's there. Dana calls later that afternoon. She's already reviewed the clause. She's cautious, but intrigued. We'll need a historical property lawyer, but if it holds, you could turn this whole thing into a legacy case. You look out at the land, the trees, the fence you repainted, the driveway you salted every winter. All of it was always yours. It was never about entitlement. It was about investment. Historians still debate whether empires fall from betrayal or from within, whether it's the stab in the back or the rot in the core, your family's collapse. It was both. The betrayal came from your sister. The rot came from the years no one said anything about it, until you did. The 1912 clause becomes a talking point in legal circles. Quiet at first, then louder. Law students email you questions. Professors cite the case in lectures. Alistair gives a podcast interview titled The Inheritance Clause That Changed Everything. Your sister, she's been silent since the final ruling. Not a text, not a post, nothing. But one day a letter arrives, handwritten, no return address. Inside, you win. I hope it was worth it. There's no signature. You don't respond, because this wasn't about winning. It was about truth, about standing in the center of a life that had always excluded you and saying, no, I belong here. You go downstairs. The house smells like fresh wood polish, like calm, like peace. You hang the 1912 clause framed right next to the family portrait, the one where you stood slightly off-center, smile, stiff eyes, uncertain. You don't feel uncertain anymore. You feel rooted. Like this house isn't just where you live. It's who you are. You never expected the silence to be so loud. No more calls. No more veiled insults hidden under dinner table politeness. No more questions about why you never smile in pictures. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how much noise you'd accepted as normal. The legal dust has settled. The house is yours. The land is secure under the 1912 clause. The community has shifted from whispers to nods, small gestures of respect from neighbors who once pretended not to notice the imbalance. But the silence from your parents, it's the kind that hums under your skin. Then comes the letter, typed, formal, the kind of letter you get from insurance companies or college admissions boards, except this one's from your father. You sit on the edge of your bed as you read. I don't expect forgiveness. I expect history to decide who is right. I thought protecting Abigail meant protecting the family. I was wrong. You were always the one who protected us. It's not an apology, but it's something, a crack in the marble. He signs it, Dad. And for the first time in months, your chest tightens, not in anger, but in grief for the version of him who used to teach you how to swing a hammer, how to match screws to wood types, how to show love through doing, not saying. You fold the letter carefully and place it in the drawer where you keep things worth remembering, not because they were kind, but because they were true. And then comes the family gathering. You almost don't go. It's your cousin's wedding, and you're fully prepared to RSVP no and call it self-care. But something pulls you there. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's closure. When you walk into the reception, heads turn. The prodigal sibling they seem to whisper. You don't wear vengeance. You wear calm. A navy suit. No tie. Just ease. Abigail is there, of course. She avoids your gaze, but the room doesn't. Several relatives approach you cautiously. You get half hugs and awkward compliments. And then during dinner, something happens. The microphone cuts out mid-toast. Your aunt fumbles. Then a familiar voice clears its throat. Your father, standing, gray suit, palms resting on the back of a chair, voice steady. I want to say something before dessert, he begins. I want to say I was wrong. The room stills. He doesn't look at you, just at the table, at the crowd. We chose convenience over character. We thought silence meant peace, but we were mistaken. He pauses. My son, and this time he does look at you, was not just equal. He was essential to our home, to our lives, to our legacy. That word again, legacy. Historians still debate whether legacies are earned or inherited, whether they come from grand gestures or the quiet accumulation of consistent care. You've come to believe it's both, but mostly it's about who shows up. There's no applause, just breath, just recognition. You nod once, not to him, but to yourself, because the truth has finally echoed back in the same room where it was buried. Later, when the music swells and couples begin to dance, you step outside. The air is cool, the stars indifferent but clear. Dana texts you, heard the speech made waves, want to grab celebratory noodles. You type back, soon, just needed to hear the silence first. You close your phone and lean against the railing, eyes tracing the constellations. In the distance, you see Abigail sitting alone. She looks up. You nod. She nods back, not with warmth, but with understanding, and sometimes that's enough. You start sleeping through the night again. It's a strange adjustment, drifting into dreams without that subconscious tally of what needs defending, fixing, or proving. No imaginary cross-examinations, no replaying old arguments, just sleep. And in the mornings, the house greets you differently. Maybe it's you who's different. You open windows, rearrange furniture, let light in where dust used to settle. You repaint the upstairs hallway, a rich deep green like moss, like growth, like claiming. A contractor you hire to patch the side gate asks casually, "So how long have you owned the place?" You think for a second before answering. Always. You mean it. Alistair sends you a small package, a mini sword letter opener, silver-plated, with a note tucked inside. For future battles, should they arise. But I doubt they will. You've already won the only one that mattered. You chuckle. You almost hope for a tax audit, just so you can brandish it with flair. Fringe tidbit. The ancient Persians used small decorative daggers, not for combat, but as symbols of status and resolve. Carried openly at court. A reminder, I am no threat, but I can be. Dana drops by one afternoon with bagels and a bottle of sparkling cider. She walks through the place like a museum visitor, nodding at the paint choices, peeking into the study. You know, she says most people would have taken the check and walked away. You raise an eyebrow. Do I look like most people? God knows, she smirks. That's why I like working with you. You eat on the back porch. The same porch where your sister once threw a 30th birthday party that you weren't invited to despite living in the house. Now that same porch hums with a different energy. Yours. You planning to keep the place? Dana asks between sips. You nod. For now. Maybe longer. She tilts her head. Any part of you want to give it all up? Walk away clean. You think about it, honestly. And you answer I did. For a long time, but not anymore. She smiles. Good. Because you're not the same person they tried to drag out of here. No, you're not. That version of you, the one who swallowed pride for peace, who kept records instead of raising hell, who waited for recognition like it was a Christmas gift that never came, that version is gone. This version acts. And then one day, a letter arrives from the county land office. Not a threat, not a bill, a recognition. It confirms that the estate has been formally re-registered under your sole ownership, citing both the 1912 clause and the reinstated inheritance settlement. It ends with a line you read 3 times. This document finalizes the inheritance claim of rightful heir, your full name. Mainstream historical fact. In 1867, the Homestead Act granted American citizens parcels of land, provided they could prove they'd lived there, worked it, built something on it. It was never just about property, it was about presence.
And you
were always here. That weekend you host a small dinner. Just a few close friends, some wine, nothing fancy.
And as the sun sets, you give a toast.
To the quiet ones, to the caretakers, to the people who don't always get the credit but keep going anyway. You look around. No tension, no secrets, no need to explain your seat at the table. You earned it. You take one last walk through the house before bedtime. Barefoot the floorboards familiar under your steps. The living room hums in low lamplight. The kitchen carries the scent of fresh herbs from the garden you finally started maintaining again. Every space once contested now feels restored, not just to your name, but to your rhythm. You pause at the doorway of what used to be your sister's room. It's empty now, save for a few boxes you haven't had the energy to sort through. You step inside, not to gloat, but to acknowledge that even this space, once off limits, has softened. There's a mirror still mounted on the wall. You catch your reflection.
And for the first time in a long time, it looks like someone you recognize.
Not the version of yourself trying to be liked. Not the son who tolerated being second. Not the sibling who stayed silent. No, this version is sharper, lighter, grounded. You open the window and let the cool air drift in. And you remember something your father once said during a winter storm. A good roof won't ask for credit, but it'll keep you dry. That used to be you, silent, strong, supportive. But now, you're not just the roof. You're the whole damn house. Outside, the night is calm. The trees sway. The fence holds. The earth beneath the foundation feels steady. Tomorrow, the restoration crew will arrive. You're having the old barn converted into a workshop, something you always dreamed of doing. You'll sand wood, restore furniture, maybe even teach a class or two, not to prove anything, just to create, to build, because that's what you've always been good at. Not just holding things together, but making them better. Historians still debate the long-term value of revenge. Some say it consumes the soul. Others argue it restores balance. But you're starting to believe the best revenge is this, healing so completely they don't even recognize the version of you that walks away. And walk away you do, from bitterness, from smallness, from the warped history they tried to hand you. The house hums as you turn out the final light. You climb into bed, the sheets crisp the world still. You exhale, not as someone defeated, but as someone returned, someone whole, someone finally home. And now, as the story settles like soft dust on a shelf, you let the last threads unwind. You feel the ache in your shoulders ease, the pulse behind your temples quiet. There's no courtroom to pace, no calls to make, no evidence to unearth, just the gentle hum of a house at rest. You sip tea in the moonlight lemon balm a bit too strong and lean back in the old rocking chair that used to belong to your grandfather. The wood groans slightly, but not in protest, in memory. Out the window, the sky is velvet dark. Stars blink lazily. You watch as a single moth taps the glass, then flutters away, aimless but free. And in this hush, you feel the difference between ending and closure. An ending is a door that slams shut, but closure, that's a door you lock quietly and walk away from with the key in your pocket. You don't need to look back anymore. You don't need them to change. They already taught you what not to become. So you let the past dissolve into the night, and tomorrow you build something new. But tonight you just breathe. In, out, and let yourself rest. Thank you for listening to the story.